You're listening to an encore presentation of this program, KCAA, the Inland Talk Express.
Thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali. I am attorney Zulu Ali with the Justice Watch crew, Rosa Nunez, Michael Bilal Clark, Paulina Hilla, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Andrea Rodeman. This week, like every week, we'll be discussing critical legal and social justice issues that are impacting our community. This week, we'll be talking about this is actually our Ramadan special entitled Set Tripping in the Ummah. Is there culturalism and racism in the Muslim American community? Is there something that Malcolm X did not see? So I want to welcome, are you with me, crew?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right.
Yep.
All right. So anyway, I kind of want to start it out with, first of all, when we talk about the Ramadan special, I kind of want to explain to the listeners who may not know what Ramadan is. Ramadan is celebrated during the 9th month of the Islamic calendar year and is observed by Muslims worldwide. It's a month of fasting and prayer and reflection and community, and it is regarded as one of the 5 pillars of Islam, and it lasts 29 to 30 days. And during this period, actually from sunrise to sunset, or actually somewhere around dawn to sunset, you're refrained from food, drinking, tobacco products, relations, and any sinful behavior. And when we talk about the issue of racism, and I'm going to begin by reading what specifically, the book in which the Muslims actually utilize, or which is their book of worship, which is called the Quran. It says in the Quran, it says, "O humanity, without doubt, we have created you from a male and a female and have made you into various nations and tribes so that you will know and understand one another," right? And it says that so that you will understand one another. And going into that, talking about clearly Islam strictly forbids racism. And so I want to talk about this particular topic during this particular month because I believe that it's one of the most important messages that we can actually give one another is actually about how we treat each other. It's making sure that you refrain from racism and actually going out of your way to make sure that you try to know people from different tribes and nations is part of Iman. I mean, it's not just something that's like a fly-by-night situation. And for those of you who do not know what Iman is about faith in the Creator, which is ultimately what it is all about. We actually had a show a few weeks ago on religion, and basically we talked about, all the religions, and April was actually a month of Easter, Passover, and it was actually the beginning of Ramadan, which actually started around April the 23rd or 24th, and actually it goes to what we expect to be May the 23rd. So I want to begin by people kind of visualizing, because we're not talking about so-called Islamophobia where there's discrimination against, Muslims. We're actually talking about within the community, really what's going on. And I want to begin by giving you a visual and a scenario as to how it manifests itself into the Muslim American community. So let's just say that when we talk about Muslims there's 1 billion Muslims worldwide, right? And we're talking about from every part of the entire world, you're talking about Muslims, being present. And so let's just say, for example, here in the United States, it says there's protests in the Palestinian issues. And if you see that issue, if you see something, if you're talking about that protest, you're going to see the African Americans are going to be participating in that protest. We saw that in Los Angeles. We see that on college campuses. We see that African Americans are very involved in protesting on behalf of Muslims, and oftentimes it doesn't even matter whether they're Muslims or whether they're non-Muslims. They've been very active in protesting on behalf of Palestinian rights or Palestinian issues. When there was issues with the no-fly list at the airports and with regards to Muslims entering the country, African Americans participated in that whole scenario. And when there's protests or any issues related to non-African Americans or African issues outside of the Arabicized sub-Saharan Africa, the community is always in. I mean, regardless of where you come from, particularly African Americans or just whether they're Muslim and actually non-Muslims. So, however, whenever there are issues impacting the African American community or the African communities, you do not see any reaction from the Muslim community on a massive basis. Whether you're talking about issues where you have individuals who have actually been subjected to police brutality, where we've seen that, whether they're Muslim or non-Muslim, we don't see them coming out and protesting and being part of that movement or anything else, because the basis of it is that basically justice anywhere is injustice everywhere. You don't see the Arabs, you don't see generally the Indo-Pacs, nor do you see the Europeans when it comes to issues related to situations related to what's going on with the African Americans. You don't see that. And the reason why is I believe that the community is infested with the mentality of oftentimes the sociopaths of being colonizers, oftentimes in the context of Arabs. And also, when you're talking about other individuals such as the Indo-Pacs, we're talking about the mindset and the social, the psychosis that goes along with individuals that are being colonized, right? As the Europeans, that's how they deal with it. And so, what happens is when we talk about one of the most important figures actually in the American Muslim context is going to be Malcolm X, he's known by Malcolm X, but he's actually, in the community, he's known as El Hajj Malik El Shabazz. And the actual, when he talks about what he saw when he went to the Hajj, and for those of you who do not know what the Hajj is, that's the annual pilgrimage to Mecca, Saudi Arabia, which I had the blessing and privilege to go in 1998. But he went to Mecca, he went to the Hajj, he talked about the fact of how the unity of the community, where he saw dark skin and light skin, black and white together in one place, interacting in harmony, which is what you do see because people are actually on their best behavior. However, what we've seen here in the U.S., and let's just keep it in context. When you talk about the foundation of the Muslim American community in the United States, the African Americans are at that foundation. We're the ones that created that foundation here in the United States. There's no questions about it. There were masjids in the United States when we saw this influx of immigrants from these Muslim countries coming into the United States. And so we're very much of the foundation in what we oftentimes call indigenous Muslims in North America, specifically in the United States. So once these individuals come into the United States, and one of the things that you're seeing, which at the time of Malcolm's time, it was in its early stages, and a lot of these immigrant Muslims that were coming and leaving their country, keeping in mind the reason they're leaving their countries, in many cases, obviously a lot of it had to do with the economic situation, but oftentimes when it comes to the practicing of their own religion, they do it more freely in the United States than they do in their own home countries. But yet, and much of the reason why they are doing it in such a free manner is much of what the African Americans has established during the fight of the civil rights movement and movements beyond that. And that's what has allowed them to have such freedom when they come into the country. But yet, and still, when they come into the country, oftentimes they treat African Americans like second-class citizens within the Islamic community. We're going to continue with this discussion on the other side of the break. Please stay tuned. Do not touch that dial.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com. There's a new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew, where we're continuing with our discussion, our Ramadan special, multiculturalism and racism in the Muslim American community. Now, Doc, you heard my my intro. You there, Doc? You with me, Doc?
Yeah, I'm here. Yes, sir.
Yeah. So you heard my intro.
Mm-hmm.
And so my question, of course, one of the primary focus that I wanted to start this off with is I want to start it off really I want to jump right into it, because I think that the best way for people to understand it is basically to just give them a scenario as to how it manifests itself in our community and why, many of us in the community kind of feel that way about our brothers and sisters that are not African American or African, and why we feel like, first of all, we have to call the attention to it, because like we always say, injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere, and we always hear that cry. I mean, how many times have you been to an organizational meeting where we go and we're always talking about Islamophobia, and we're talking about injustice anywhere is injustice everywhere. However, what we don't hear is the whole the conversation about how can you start about Islamophobia from a global perspective when you cannot even begin by addressing the whole issue of racism within your own community. I mean, so that's the way I see it. So, I mean, if I'm wrong, Doc, I want you to tell me.
No, Brother Ali, Ramadan Mubarak. Listen, you are spot
Ramadan
on.
Kareem.
This goes back to the early days of the inception of the Nation of Islam into this community, where it was adamant lack of embracement because of the fact that certain individuals felt, the Arab culture felt that we were not practicing religion correctly. We were not doing it their way. Let's be very clear. This is not an Arab religion. Islam has never been an Arab religion. And you framed it extremely well. This religion is based on justice, freedom, and equality. And when those same principles are not practiced within the ranks of this dean, we have to really question what we're doing. A lot of times what happens is formality kicks in, and individuals want to judge based on the formality as opposed to the religion itself, walking in the imams a certain way, giving your salams a certain way, etc. When we should be focusing on the treatment of people, the treatment of the individuals, and the embracement in that. Now, you talk about Brother Minister Malcolm. Let's be real clear here. When Brother Minister Malcolm made Hajj, when he saw the overview of what he saw, you got to remember, Malcolm was one who was in so many of the Islamic eyes a celebrity.
Right.
The Arabs looked at Malcolm as somebody who stood up to America, who challenged the internal system of America, etc. So the treatment that Malcolm received was far different from the average black man, and especially here in America. Another point you made extremely well. We had established the deen. We had established Islam in this country back in the early 40s and the 50s, long before the Arabs were anywhere to be found. And, you know, we're qualifying here. We don't want to put every Arab. There are some outstanding Arabs, but generally, this, and we've got to call it as it is, unapologetically, still to this day, you have that defensiveness when you walk into the mosque. And that goes back to the fact that, again, certain people have embraced this religion as theirs and look at others that come into the religion as something inferior or some secondary. And so many of us are not having it, never had it, and we will not continue to have it. Let's go back to, lastly, the point of why that actually exists. It exists because there's been always a prevalent fear factor of the European dominance in this country. And Arabs have feared that to such a degree that they do not and did not want to buck that system. So the affiliation with an individual of color outside of their own, so many of them looked at that as going against the predominant European country in this country, and they didn't want to have that. Too many of the Arabs come in this country and want to be accepted by the status quo. They want to be looked upon in a comfortable position by the European that has dominated not only them, but has dominated this country and the majority of the individuals in this country. So, you know, moving forward, if we're going to truly try to broadcast this religion as a benchmark, we've got some serious internal house cleaning to do, and we've got to get our own ranks really clarified so we can really show that example of equality, that example of equalness, and that example that there's no colorism in this deen.
Right. Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, we talk about checking yourself, and I mean, and that's so important because I mean, in the point that you made about Malcolm and the celebrity status, I mean, we've seen that. We've seen that whenever it comes to them embracing, they want to embrace certain African Americans that, and you know, whether you're talking about athletes, whether you're talking about actors, whether you're talking about politicians, then they're going to actually go out of their way. But this is not really the whole point. I mean, it's everything about what it's all about. I mean, so in other words, what about the brother that comes in? What about the street sweeper? You know, that's on his dean. I mean, are you going to give him the same type of respect and same type of attention? Why are you giving the guy who comes into, and let's just be honest, where we're talking about the issues of the Arabs and whether we're talking about the issues of some Arabs. I'm going to qualify it like you did. Some Arabs and some of the Indo-Pacs, the Indians and the Pakistanis, and some people from other places they come to this country, come into our communities, set up liquor stores, set up you know, these other places selling these vices, and they are treated in higher esteem. They sometimes are on the board of directors of a masjid.
Yes, sir.
And treated him more than the guy who we've seen as pauper, who goes to the masjid and all he's there is he's doing everything he can to give to the community, and he's looked up on for no other reason than just because of his social status and just because of the color of his skin. Now, I mean, when you got something like that going on, then you're wondering what is going on. Now, you got your mouth still open from 9/11 talking about Islamophobia, right? And this is obviously a sign for you. Why are you worried about Islamophobia? You're more worried about the way someone is looking at you. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we're talking about God, was specific in the book that they will never accept you.
Thank you.
So why are you more worried about them accepting you than for me to accept you, or for somebody else who happens to be of color or African American? You're more worried about them than you're worried about me. You're more worried about being invited to the caucus or the party, or you want to get, you know, your time on, and then you go into the places of worship and spend your whole time talking about what's going on in your country.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I so well said on so many fronts, Ali, and you know, I know we have our other guests. We're going to jump in here, but real quickly on that point. Look, you know, at the end of the day, when you come in the mosque, it is supposed to be a reverence in the heart of that community. That mosque is supposed to surround you with warmth, with wealth, with the nur that we call the light in Arabic. And when that doesn't happen, you really got to question the foundation of that religion. How can you talk about other religions, whether it be Christianity, whether it be Judaism, when you're not practicing the fundamentals of what your religion is supposed to be all about? When you've got people that you isolate, not just on the exterior level, but within the mosque. We've got individuals that come in the mosque and don't feel like they belong because of the social isolation, the social degradation, etc. And so, again, at the end of the day, that has to change. And look, you cannot, because of the fact that you feel that this is your religion, think that that gives you the right for dominance and to be able to treat others with not that level of equality. And let me just say, you know, one of the things they really came up against us in the nation was the fact that we didn't give a damn. You know, we told them, no, we know what this religion does for us, and we had to look at it from the context of the degradation that we were going through as a people, which they didn't understand. 9/11, Ali, and I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm not going to go into that, but 9/11, the thing about 9/11, they really had that opportunity to see not only how we have been feeling, but the fact of what this society, as well as this country, as well as them, were actually doing to us in reverse. And that is the only time that there was a really reach out. But even at that reach out was for protection and to create some type of normality and anchoring on them, as opposed to treating us as equal brothers, etc. And again, that has to change.
Right. And you know what, I want to go back when we talk about the nation, because we always, you know, you got brothers, you got African-American brothers that will get and do YouTube videos. They will do sermons and do speeches and sell things for an entire hour denouncing Minister Louis Farrakhan and talking about how he's not a real Muslim. Now, I'm not even going to go into that, because that's not really what I'm here to do, and I'm not going to do that because this is not a time for us to talk about this one particular brother. However, you don't spend any time talking about what's going on within Sunni Islam. You should spend the same intensity. Where are you at, Bilal?
I'm here, brother.
Talk to me.
Here.
Talk to me.
You know, man. You know, you guys have touched on so much. I mean, you hit everything that you said was right on point. The thing about it is, you know, it's a sad reality that we're dealing with, and I'm glad the fact that we are bringing this, to the forefront and bringing this to attention, because it needs to be done. It needs to be said. And, you know, I've experienced it, you know, going inside of some of the masjids and stuff like that, whether or not wanting to put the small factors, I don't want to touch your feet. You know, this is my religious belief. You know, you a convert, you can go on and on with, you know, just how, racist people are. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that, you know, we'll stand up for everybody and anybody, you know, when it comes to oppression.
That's right.
Don't want nobody come to our aid or assist us when things are happening to us. And I think it's like you say, it's time to, you know, bring attention to this and make people aware of this, because, you know, the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam did not say that. You know, he spoke out against all of this that we're speaking on right now. And you know, it's just a sad reality. And I think that we have to bring more and more attention to this.
All right, we're getting ready to go to the break. Keep that in mind, and do not touch that dial. We'll be back on the other side of the break for Justice Watch.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com. There's a new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
KCAA.
Thank you. Welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali. Rosa, I'm going to go to you now. I know that you know, and I just want you to give me just an unbiased, because I know that you're a Christian, mm-hmm. and I do know that you've obviously living in Southern California and also going to a university that probably had a sizable Muslim population, mm-hmm. and and now actually living in Spain, because I know there's Muslims obviously in Spain. I want you to give me your take, just in general, as it relates to, you've heard what we're talking about, mm-hmm. the things that we're talking about. Is that something that, at least looking inside, is that something that ever caught your attention?
I mean, I think one of the things that you were all talking about that really stood out to me was the fact that, you mentioned that Muslim African Americans are treated like second-class citizens. And I feel like from a national perspective, it can be in part explained by the concept behind intersectional racism. To be more thorough, people in the U.S. are discriminated on the basis of race, religion, socioeconomic status, naturalization status, color, ethnicity, and etc. And when either of those entwine, that's to say, whenever you fit into one or more of those categories, that's when you see massive oppression. In the case of Muslim African Americans, we know that we have 3.45 million Muslims of all ages living in the U.S., making up about 1.1% of the U.S. population. Out of all of that Muslim population, 28% are black. So you can see that's one category. They're discriminated on the basis of color. They also face injustice because of their religion, first of all. I mean, 82% of Muslims being polled have said that they have faced discrimination at least once in their lifetime. So you have color, you have religion. They are also discriminated because of their naturalization status. 64% of Muslims living in the U.S. are actually immigrants. And you also have the socioeconomic status aspect to it. 34% of Muslims earn less than $30,000 a year. So we're talking about individuals, I feel, whom are discriminated in all aspects of their life because they fit into various categories that are systematically oppressed. And no matter what race you belong to, or even if you identify with that individual, the system has trained you to desensitize the person's suffering, and you have been trained to discriminate because the system overall has conquered the masses, but has conquered the masses by dividing the masses.
Right.
So that's kind of like what I see from an outer perspective, that there's definitely discrimination, I feel, within the Muslim community, but it's also kind of like playing onto the national aspect of it, the fact that these people fit into various categories that are systematically oppressed.
Right. Yeah, it's a really interesting because this is kind of how you and just to be clear, I mean, you know, it's an extremely complicated dynamics because as you say, there's a very large number of African Americans who make up the Muslim population in the United States. And it could be even a higher number if you actually talk about those who are practicing, because oftentimes you'll have individuals who identify, you know, but they're not necessarily practicing, which is, you know, oftentimes the situation with any type of religion, religious identity. And so, you know, what's really interesting about the religion is that most people, specifically those who happen to be reverts, and specifically those within our country that go to practice, you know, the religion specifically of Islam, is because they're drawn to it because of the perception that it is a religion of peace and it's a religion where racism is not something that is tolerated. And they feel like that's something that many people have that come as reverts, especially African Americans, revert where they had been formerly practicing Christianity. And they feel that that's what's in Christianity, specifically those in the Midwest and especially in the Midwest. And they feel like, you know, the Klan and, you know, the whole idea of the cross and, you know, whatever the idea, but that's how they bring it, you know, convert. And many of it is legitimate from the perspective because we have to separate the religion of Islam and the people who attest that they are, you know, worshipers. They're not the same. And so now that we're in a situation, but as part of that, brotherhood is oftentimes the test. You know, we know that, and I know there's very much similar in the Christian religion because I was raised as a Christian. And oftentimes, you know, we're giving situations where you're tested by whether people call it devil, Satan, Satan, or whatever. And, you know, we're all supposed to love each other regardless of the color of their skin, regardless of their background, regardless of the nation that they come from, no matter where they're from. You know, discriminating against someone else because of that is just as bad as any other sin that you may, whether you're talking about thieving, murdering, anything like that. It falls up on that level, and you don't have what we call iman if you do that. And when we talk about the term of iman, we go back to the whole issue of faith. And it's one thing to be a Muslim, but it's a different thing to be a Muslim and be a believer. And in fact, there is a hadith, and a hadith is a saying of the Prophet, which said that basically he had told his followers that every one out of 1,000 of you, 999 of you will go to hell, and one of you will go to heaven. And if you sit down and you think about it, sometimes it also reflects on the idea that, you know, it's not going to be easy, but he also says that if you follow you know, your creator and obey your creator, then you will make it, right? And so the reality of it is that most of us, unfortunately, we're more fearful of our own government. We're more fearful of our friends and our status and our money and our materialism and all these worldly things than we are of who we consider to be our creator, or which is whether you're talking about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, whether you're talking about God, Yahweh, whatever you want to call them, that's really the issue. And that's what really brings us away. Whenever you bring nationalism into religion, it's always a problem. And that's where you talk about these whole ideas of these terrorists, whether you're talking about Christian terrorists or whether you're talking about Muslim terrorists. It's always a matter of nationalism. When you bring nationalism into what is their real focus? It has nothing to do with God, but it has everything to do with the fact that they're upset about something that has to do with why they feel like they should be God. You see what I'm saying? So that's the way I look at it, and I want you guys chime in on that on my comment if you can, and tell me if I'm in line or if I'm not.
Well, I want to go back, Brother Ali, and I want to be real clear, and I think you said something extremely important. Let's don't get this mixed. We don't have a religious problem. We have a people problem.
Right.
The religion itself is very clear. The religion, if followed as it's supposed to be, we wouldn't have the issues that we're dealing with, whether it be related to nationalism, whether it be related to internalized racism, whether it be relating to a false interpretation of what we're supposed to be doing. We have a people problem, and we have individuals who in this religion, as well as exteriorly to this religion, have a mindset that they have some type of dominance, that they have some type of control mechanism, that they have some type of ability to control the narrative. So, again, in the religion itself, as you well know, we're continuously trying for self-mastery. We know none of us are perfect, and we're trying to strive for that level of perfection, which we will never gain, but at least constantly having the integrity to be the best that we can, have the integrity to make others rise while we raise, having set a benchmark of what a religion is supposed to do, which is the embetterment of people. Now, if we're diametrically opposed to that because of our actions, if our actions are not dictating what the religion represents, regardless of what we say we're doing, regardless of how many times we pray, regardless of how many times we go to the mosque, we are not following a religion. And lastly, as it relates to black people, as it relates to real people of color, why are we not having a united front of Arabs to deal with the violence in our community, to deal with the degradation of domestic violence, to deal with the degradation of child abuse, to deal with the degradation of police shootings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? If you are truly standing for justice, you don't pick and choose when you implement that justice because it benefits or lack of benefiting of you. You have to stand on all accounts. And if we are your brothers in this religion, you have to stand with us as we have stood with you. So that's where we've got to go as we move this process forward.
And you know what's something, Doc, and Bilal and Rosa as well. Now, I mean, when and I know that you've been doing it for a very long time, Doc, but we've collaborated for the last few years on issues that would be beneficial to to the community. When I say community, we don't have any program that's geared towards just African Americans and Africans. We just have it that are benefited towards people in need.
Yes,
right? Sir. And so out of all in any of those programs, as long as you've been doing it, Doc, and as long as you've been and what we've been doing, Bilal, and what we've been doing together, even when we talk about even the radio show and some of the programs that we've had, we get very little response and interest from the community. And when I say community, the Muslim community, and I'm just going to be clear, I mean, myself, Doc, and Bilal are Muslim, and we just happen to be African American as well. And so I can just tell you from the firsthand experience that you would expect that they would come with the same intensity anytime that you have a program by individuals in the community that's going to address suffering to anybody, right?
Yes, sir.
But at any rate, we'll continue with this discussion on the other side of the break. Please do not touch that dial.
I'm mad.
Nubian Pictures presents a CCM Films production documentary entitled Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. This emotional and strong documentary tells the story of African-American lawyer Zulu Ali seeking justice and his purpose as a lawyer, while crossing paths with Araceli, an undocumented immigrant from Mexico who is seeking her freedom. Together, they help discover their purpose and freedom in each other. Watch this incredible film today from iTunes Movies, YouTube Movies, Amazon Prime, and Google Play Movies. Learn about the cast and crew, links to purchase, and more at purposeandfreedommovie.com. Purpose and Freedom. Keep your hand on the plow. Available now. Rated G.
I did not feel safe. That's why I decided to come to California, because I didn't feel safe in Mexico.
It's kind of like the system, and if you go outside the system, then it becomes a struggle.
Are you an immigrant seeking defense representation and are looking to protect your rights? Or maybe someone who is experiencing an injustice or discrimination and need a lawyer you can trust? Well, that's exactly why you need the help of award-winning trial lawyer Zulu Ali. The law offices of Zulu Ali provides immigration defense representation for those seeking justice and looking to protect their rights. If you or a loved one needs professional legal advice and representation, then contact Zulu Ali. Zulu Ali's firm focuses on criminal law, family law, civil and personal injury, and international law. Zulu Ali is a former police officer and U.S. Marine, so you know you're in good hands, serving all of California and immigration cases nationwide, representing victims and suspects at the International Criminal Court at The Hague. Call Zulu Ali today at 888-682-3049 or visit ZuluAliLaw.com. There's a new nationally syndicated radio program that's sweeping the nation, and you don't want to miss it. Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali, the voice of justice for the people. The focus of Justice Watch is to provide an honest analysis and viable solutions to the criminal and social justice crisis in America and the world from a black, brown, working class, and socially disadvantaged perspective, and to motivate listeners to be informed and part of the solution. Zulu Ali is joined by the Justice Crew, consisting of Rosa Nunez, Michael Clark, Dr. Akil Bashir, and Charito Ali to tackle the most pressing issues. Host attorney Zulu Ali is a former police officer, U.S. Marine Corps veteran, and an award-winning trial lawyer who focuses on representing persons accused of crimes, immigrants, victims of discrimination, and persons seeking civil justice. Find out how to listen to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali at justicewatchradio.com.
KCAA.
Welcome back to Justice Watch with attorney Zulu Ali and the Justice Watch crew. We're continuing with our discussion, our Ramadan special about the issue of discrimination and racism within the Muslim community. Now, I'm going to start out with you, Bilal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so one of the things that I kind of want to talk about, and I kind of guess it pretty much goes along with the same. I mean, we clearly have made it clear that we know that the whole idea of racism and discrimination is something that is completely forbidden in the religion, and something that we say that it's really not, an issue of you clearly don't have iman if you are discriminatory towards anybody, really, right? And we also made it clear, when we discussed the whole issue of, I think Rosa's calling back, and I think that we also talked about the whole idea of how we're being treated. Now, I know that, and this is one of the things that I've noticed, and I kind of want to talk a little bit about how, we kind of when it says in the book that you've been created to different tribes and nations so that you will know one another and not despise one another. Oftentimes what happens, especially when it comes to the issue of those who generally it's called converts, some people call it reverts, but individuals who come into the religion. And when they come into the religion, oftentimes what they do is, unfortunately, because I want to talk about the issue that we've got a whole lot of scholarship. It's not like we just got off the bus and all of a sudden, I was told a long time ago, if you really want to learn, the scholarship and understand Islam, you need to go to Tuba. You need to go to Senegal, which I was blessed with an opportunity to go to Tuba. And there's also, we talk about the Sencori Institute. We're talking about Timbuktu. We have very deep history in our culture, and I'm talking about the African culture of not only just of having scholarship. I mean, we're talking about libraries. We're talking about thousands of years of being within the religion. However, what happens is that they tend to, when you come into it, certain individuals tend to want you to believe that they have a monopoly on it. So what happens is you come in, and so the whole idea, keeping in mind, clearly he says tribes and nations. He specifically put you in a different tribe and nation for a reason, not for you to forget what tribe you come from, but he did it so that we will know one another. There's nothing wrong with that, right? But what you see is this whole process, unfortunately, where they try to convince you to drop whatever you're doing that's in your culture. It's like your culture, what you do in your culture, somehow is diametrically opposed to what you're supposed to be doing as a Muslim. So then what they do is you're not wearing, don't wear the dashiki, but make sure you wear a throbe. Make sure that you do, some of these things when they're talking about, they try to say it is the, it's Sunnah. They try to make you think everything that they do is Sunnah, but it's not. And so what I want you to kind of chime in on is your thoughts on how they kind of try to get us to, release our own culture and our own beliefs, you know what I'm saying, to the extent that it's not in opposition to, what you're supposed to do. That whole idea that they bring you in and all of a sudden you just drop everything. It's like you don't have your culture. What they're doing is not giving you a culture of being a Muslim, which really doesn't exist. They're trying to give you a culture of somebody else because your culture is inferior.
Exactly. But see, this is where they go wrong, is because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made it clear that he created us into natures and tribes so that we may know each other, not destroy. That's what makes it great. That's what makes Islam great, is that you can be a Muslim no matter where you come from and still have your traditional values and things like that, as long as you don't go outside the fold. And so with individuals like that, they come along and say, you have to wear this, you have to wear that, trying to say that that's their tradition, right? Mm-hmm. In other words, to take you out of what you have and to try to make you conform. And I think that it goes back to what you said earlier, is that a lot of the Arabs and a lot of the Pakistanis, they conform to a lot of the European doctrine. Mm. And so, therefore, they look at us just the same way that the Europeans look at us. And that's plain and simple. That's how it is. And that's the sad reality. I mean, when you can go and say, well, I don't want to go to this masjid, I'm going to go to this African American masjid. I mean, man, come on. That's what get Islam a black eye. I mean, because you should be able to go to any masjid and be able to worship Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala no matter what. But people make you feel so uncomfortable where now you got to drive miles away just to attend a masjid because you don't want to feel uncomfortable in another masjid. Yeah. And I think that, we as African American must continue to hold on to what we have and not conform to it, because I think that when we do conform, we actually go outside the fold of Islam. Because we're not standing on what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has laid out for us. That we can dress like this or we can be like this and not have to conform to somebody else and stay within the fold.
Right. Yeah, it's interesting. What do you think about that real quick, Doc?
Same, right, spot on. Well, spot on. And look, with Islam as well as most religions, the problem in where most religions go off track is the fact that there is a heavily concentration on formalism as opposed to the core of the religion. The reason why the Prophet ﷺ wore a thobe and a turban was because of the geographical terrain in Arab in the region where he came up. The reason why we cup our pants, or they cupped their pants back in the day, was because sand would get in the pants and they would cup them up so the sand would not get on the prayer rug. And here we are wearing those and kufis because we think that's part of the religion, when actually it was a geographic infusion based on survival of where they were at. So again, the culture, as Bilal well said, culture is relevant, and we have to maintain our culture. And you said it so well, Brother Ali. Don't subjugate what we believe in. Don't subjugate the foundation of what we stand on. Don't subjugate that which makes us great as a people and say we have to displace that because we embrace your religion. That's where they ran into headway with the nation. Again, as I said earlier, the fact that we knew what we had to do to raise black men and to raise black women in this country, and everything that we were doing and using your religion to help us get there, you told us was wrong, and we had to put that down with the type of characteristics of racism that we were embracing. Shame on you. Mm-hmm. Shame on you.
Right.
And you know, and real quick, I want to say this, and that's not to say that if someone wants to wear the clothes, someone wants to wear these, these traditional clothing and stuff like that, so be it. To you be your way, no problem. But at the same time, don't bash those that don't wear it.
Right.
And don't make it as if, as Brother Ali so well said, this is part of the religion when we know this is formality, when we know that this doesn't even fall under the realm of hadith. You're doing it for cultural dynamic and a cultural narrative.
Right. And I mean, another thing, too, is that basically just going back to the whole idea of, trying to, when we talk about the foundation and talk about, how many times do people bring it up? I don't care whether they're black or whether they're white or whoever they are, that always want to bring up this whole issue of trying to put you on the defensive to sit there and say about Minister Louis Farrakhan. The thing about it is basically you're not going to put me on the defensive, and I'm not going to go out of my way to try to explain to you that one is different than the other, because basically, that's something completely different, and I'm not going to get into that discussion. But there's a whole lot of things that need to be discussed, and sometimes it's because he's fair game. When you have these people that come out and they kind of go into these discussions and trying to, because it does a couple of things. It makes people feel more comfortable about you when it comes to the mainstream, and it also makes people make you feel more comfortable even within the religion, because it validifies who you are as what we refer to as the Sunni Muslim, and so that's why I believe that you don't need to condemn him to explain what's going on. You don't have to condemn him to let them understand really this is what the religion is. I kind of like, think why aren't you spending that much time talking about what's going on in the more so-called Orthodox or Sunni Muslim tradition? Why don't you talk about what's happening there? And we don't do that. And I think that that's something that we should do. And I'm begging, all of my brothers and sisters and humans, period, I love for the sake of my Creator, right? That's just not that's what my religion calls me to do. I don't have no hatred in my heart for anybody else. However, what I can tell you is that I do have an obligation to encourage people to try to embrace everyone, to try to be kind and gentle and sweet to everybody. It's not about what you have, but it's about who you help. You know what I'm saying? That's what you're going to be judged on. And the whole idea, huh?
No, I was going to say real quick, Brother Ali, you can say what you want to about Minister Farrakhan, but he has more guts than most of these imams out here. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the only judge, and we are going to be judged for our rights and our wrongs, whatever that may be. But that man has stood up against all odds, just like the Honorable Elijah Muhammad did. So you can say what you want, but these individuals are going to be a testimony of the signature of what they had to go through and what they brought to this society when they were here.
Well, all I can say is we do know that there's the hadith about the so-called prostitute who basically went into a well and got water for a thirsty dog and gave him water, and she was rewarded for it. So, it's about your deeds. But at any rate, thank you for tuning in for this edition of Justice Watch. And on behalf of the Justice Watch crew, we'll see you next week. Same time, same place, same channel. And until that time, stay blessed. Got to get back.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA.